Hello, good morning. Excuse my appearance. Just woke up, even take a shower, shave. I, I have to say, New York speed test. Everyone lost. No one got that information, which is out there. Proves that geopolitical campuses knew that the world was not flat, but they were teaching everybody human nature that it was flat. In other words, attaching lies and convictions, self-defended. Excuse me, by the opinionators, cough, by the opinionators of the species. So, in other words, this is a relationship too. For example, the Columbian Exchange, 1500s to 1600. No, that's 1500s were 16th century. People got confused by that. 1600s were 17th century. 1700s were 18th century. 1800s were, no, 19th century. 1900s were 20th century. So 1800s were 19th century. The thing is, it's one ahead. The thing is, the Columbian Exchange. Now, Columbus sailed the Ocean Blue, 1492. Right before 1500, with their narratives, but we know they're associated with criminal insidiousness, juxtapositions, not just from one criminal enterprise, from a juxtaposition of criminal enterprises. And this was per method to have it blamed on other lies and delusions, knowing that self-defense natures of logic with those lies and delusions attached to premises were multi-front to the defense of a common edifice of indifferences, perpetuating perpetually breached expert liens. For example, at the same time, when they were bringing diseases, dividing Native Americans, setting up slavery's first criminal insidiousness narratives. It's a terror-based relationship with other terror laws against people of all color. And it was intercultural police who did this, and who maintained exploitations of it with relationship to uncharged natures of organized crime, in relationship to uncharged motivations for evidence fabrications missed, in relationship to massive crime statistics blamed on our human nature, and with lies and delusions attached to actual criminals and innocent victims, claim criminals in relationship to the roles with systemic. In other words, at the same time when they were doing this in America, in relationship to the 13 colonies ending in Georgia, with England, and with them, and with the narratives, with them, with the war with Spain, with France through the ages. At the same time, they were forced, unrealizing them in Spain, to alliances below the border. In other words, to peace relationships, in relationship to the only realized mass chaos blamed on lies and delusions. Even the most sophisticated legal natures were only realized through interscience roles with this internation. Internation sciences were taken over. Before internation litigation nature, legal nature was taken, systems were taken over, were tricked, separated, so they could facilitate a method that facilitated nations to wars with each other, nations of leaderships only realized to extortions they didn't understand. In relationship to terrorists, they had to defend with roles to wars, enabled, so they didn't understand. So Spain was being used with a different narrative because it wasn't in relationship to the narratives that were only being self-defended, in relationship to England and France, with terrorists between each other, but leaving out the whole game of, in other words, only even the king's extortions, even dictators' extortions, in relationship to terrorists, to all areas affected, leveraging nations against themselves. There's old art depicting Hercules attacking the Amazon women, for example. We must understand slavery down there and landscape denaturing, human value nature denaturing. This was political theater. This is for landscape theater involving the human nature itself, sabotaging our reception of unchanging ancient revelations. In other words, with no criminal persuasions, nature itself already revealed as the course of unchanging positives evolution. And that sabotaged is a species value nature system. It's a captivation, it's a criminal enterprise, it's a virus, in other words. So we have Oz, not by accident, actively exploiting. And so in other words, we have to understand the method that juxtaposed criminal enterprises and made nations, leaderships, divided and with roles self-defending means giving them to counter the terrorists they didn't understand, consciously seeing them as wrongdoers in relationship to a nature of organized crime that all nations didn't understand. And so as that progresses, the lie progression cover-ups they create predicate acts. I'm not a lawyer, not a police, not a criminal. They create predicate acts, which are high crimes, like murder, like mail fraud, with criminal insidiousness natures. They create wrongdoers. These things progress, lie progressions, and then people have to cover up lies. The motivations become terrorists. They have to blame means to cover up those lie progressions, other lies and delusions. When they run out of them, they have to pretend violence for reasons other. Sharing needs to get away with the same lies, not only as other homeland people, but as breaching methods between and as a method to all areas before our nations were realized. And relationships, terror database relationships left uncharged, even though we have the proofs of it for correlation. But we have predatory lies and delusions glorified, juxtaposed to the treatment of facts, to fact treatments, not by accident. So we have mass evil attached to this. This is where the mass evil of slavery came from. This is why disgusting things. You know, when they talk about language, but they don't deal with facts. In other words, there's a guy online in the media. I'm over here asking for them. They could have prevented the worst natures of crimes, exploitations of all ages of innocence. But they don't. But then they run stories the way they're directed to by police and by database relationship to stories, too, in relationship to their narratives, with sensibilities worried about the fact treatments wanted by things that have nothing to do with reality, like the guises of advertising in the policing agency. In other words, we were born already entrenched to what James Madison, Marbury versus Madison. And I'm not a lawyer. True justice must satisfy all appearances of true justice. What is true always. And we have this entertain not, in other words, with fact treatments. So in other words, that's a lie and delusion when they say a war is a revolution. These are two different words for a reason. So the American Revolution had nothing to do with the war. I mean, it had to do with it, but it was beyond that. And it was in relationship to what France and Spain and England and all these other nations, Asia, what they were doing together to the exploitation of their own people, not realizing their reliance upon expert means, leveraging this only realized self-defending. The nations as breaching nature roles to ourselves in relationship to terror justifications of it not understood. and perpetuated evidence fabrication roles without understanding, with charging them wrong, attaching lies and delusions to them, and maintaining evidence fabrication cover-up methods necessary to only that realized legal natures, predatory litigation nature, existed before modern nations through what denatured ancient sciences and species correlation nature and method before criminal persuasions, for criminally legalized persuasions. So it is essential that we have a history that understands this. So we have a grown man and needing people to believe in prejudice. We have him making fun of a girl because of her name. And she was in the paper, it had nothing, she didn't even do anything wrong, you know? Just, and he's making fun of her name. He said, oh, that's why we're having problems. These are people, these are statements. We have healthcare people with statements like this. And see, then they can't in real life. And then they spend rumors about people they don't even know, because they have roles with street drug crimes and with prescription drug crimes that no one even realizes, blaming out on lies and delusions. And it being first, the worst problems with it, being with our interbranch families, being with internation families, and being with all that's juxtaposed with that, not by accident. Wanting and needing it to be blamed on things like money, on like prejudice, things that aren't true always. So the guy is prejudiced, for example, saying those things about a little girl. And this is the nature of Connecticut media that has been preventing threats with campuses and with police forums, with interbranch actors involved, with online rape threats, murder threats, evidence fabrication proofs, offensively first, and then causing reactions through interconnected people with connections they don't even realize. In other words, just attacking strangers online. But it's in relationship to evidence fabrication, life progression needs, tied to the worst crimes, for what's holding everyone. In other words, no one wants to be involved with the worst crimes, but they have it standardized to our areas and ways because they have our expert leads standardized to getting away with exploitations of the right to lie systemically with all kinds of natures of police. And with them for sheer, since founding, with terror uncharged and on challenge unrealized, because if they're going to share the same markets, commodity positions, and market, and reliance upon that with our people, they share the guises with them needing to, the argument of them needing to police it together. So our landscape is sold, already denatured, uncharged. This is what Native Americans are trying to say. The negative value nature progressions will continue because we're not with an active relationship to what is actively in demonstration to us as what revealed all these species. And that was denatured. For example, you take away the fruit, you take away the right to infrastructure that's capable of lasting New England winters. You denature the landscapes, and you leverage the areas incentivized to help each other, but incentivized divided with that too. In other words, to help each other. Now we need food from other areas. Now we're in position on those other areas, like Hawaii. They have cities there. They have ill progressions, just like over here. Consciously and willfully maintained, blamed, insidiously, methodically blamed on actual human nature, when it is with a method to stay the exploitation of all age of innocence, not just one color. That was one tactic to have us perpetually blame everything. The causes of needing response to cause blame it on lies and delusions as measured tool evidence fabrication natures. Across the board of nations, only let realize human nature expert mean expert glorification. For example, one reason, for example, Hillary Clinton would be a better president than Joe Biden. And he's a great man. He's a type of man, for example, all these types, but because he's a man, we have to use who we have to communicate. We can't be afraid just because he can crush us. But in other words, Hillary's not putting physics before metaphysics as much as him, and as much as what's his name, Donald Trump. That's why the Constitution can't be defended as a business, because business is not a fact. In other words, especially if business is against sacred rights, and especially when there's organized crime methods having those sacred rights with litigation, with linguistic tricks, and with evidence sequence tricks, and relying upon mass hurt conviction natures. In other words, if you try to report things, there's software policing of Facebook recorded proofs of them too involved with exploitations of innocent tall areas and uses of the media telling lies consciously, but the media people involved are not understanding, and the industries no one understanding, because we don't have truth followed. We don't have it in sequence. So the media wrote stories about me, but there's proofs, recorded proofs that there were with lies, and with slanders, and using giving impression. I had relations to people, and I had conversations with people that never were, all at once. In other words, in relationship to how they had all the drug forms and the people involved with that when I was little. So they use those people in relationship to systemic evidence fabrication, systemic witness fabrication problems, systemic interbranch database evidence stacking, illusions, predatory. No, this is connected to motivations where we had mass evil. It wasn't prejudice, because it was prejudice, but where it was prejudice is where, in other words, is something more sophisticated than that, something more finite, which is evidence fabrication methods, breaching methods, for evidence. In other words, trapping people into life progressions they have to perpetually cover it up, and having them knowing they're going to use standardized means to do that, and not by accident. This is why we have things like child prostitution, and if you go to make a complaint about these things, before you say anything, because of the nature of how they have all the police forms, even court police involved, they know they're in trouble. They know that they can't bring attention to what they already have involvements with per recorded proof. So they jump forward, and they even tell the appointed lawyers to pretend you said things about it before you did. And in other words, to discredit what you're saying, and make an argument about a conversation that wasn't. And then some people will be playing roles, letting these predatory litigation methods right into the record that they had conversations they didn't, because having them respond to evidence sequence shifted and lies attached conversations that are saying this is unchanging truth, and not letting that challenge or any free speech to voice that. We only have free speech allowed to make expression. We have predatory breaching nature roles with our branches, with our stewards, with the stewards of our media. So the media takes the top. It's not just them. It's intercity, interstate, internation, international. So what we have to do is deal with real facts And the real facts show now through correlation the relationship of police with Connecticut media too, threatening, with recorded proofs threatening women not to respond to threats against their children, threats against active abuses of related children, and threats not to say anything with evidence fabrications used in prisons offensively as weapons, not letting people not say anything and then just writing them into languages to cover up all the court connections to it. Active exploitations of all ages of innocence through time and through how employments were set up to all areas. Everyone's a victim at once. So it's hardest to deal with the court first, but they have the most insidious, most evil roles. Because the most evil roles beyond that are breaching terror methods, maintaining terror methods upon, them too, with these negative identity progressions they don't understand. So have been blaming them on lies and illusions. So then, having been stayed, because these are our only experts, not by accident. And then too, but see, in physics though, all these presidents, all the candidates, including Hillary, they don't know how to treat like local 230 issues because they don't understand all it's connected to. And they have these positions and these natures only realize defending evidence fabrication roles in relationship to the agencies teaching them to do that. Only letting them realize in relationship to the sciences, only letting the industries communicate with lies and illusions, with predatory fact treatment natures. And with breached incompetence natures, and worse. In other words, so everyone's playing a game of business, because that's all that's left to be thought, not by accident. So in other words, not only do we have this guy online making fun of color people because like perpetuating people that are exploited by geopolitical logistical impositions, thinking it's for other reasons. And the motivations for this need to be understood, because we have known criminal enterprises with juxtapositions with other hate groups in the areas, with juxtapositions with the stewards from each of our branches, for a method that had them, per recorded proofs, that has them using Facebook and evidence fabrication cover-up methods that are with roles maintaining proofs that they see the causes of the worst natures of crime, but do nothing about it. And because they're exploiting it in worse ways, only let realize train for what only let realize as a method before our branches per colonization. Per Madison's quest to us to finish what our obligations were with facts, not to just to let expression and entertain guys and her conviction nature is blaming people that are already hurt by this stuff. So in other words, it's very simple. These people committed crimes online. And they've been lying about it in the background and spreading rumors about it and using interbranch families with roles pretending to care about. This is, this is how you can see it too. We're going to see it as interstate, international, international. Pretending to care about things like school bullying and like women when they are demonstrably recorded proofs involved with exploitations of all ages of innocence, of all rackets of standardized criminality. And with that mass chaos, for example, trained to blame it on human nature and to blame it on people's needs to make money, for example, in relationship to the narratives with the natures of organized crime involved acts with with exploitations of strippers, and juxtaposed with natures of prostitution, and juxtaposed with police forms who've been sharing these women. So they make contacts where they make strangers make confessions, and then and then and then they want to fight about what is not debatable, and pretend illusions to have court settle that are involved with it already, with methods of perpetuating facts mistreatments and illusions right through our courts. So one-way reports. What we need to do is deal with the facts. So we need to deal with, since 2000, confessions from people connected to Covington Street, connected to their threats and acts with breaking into homes, and with evidence fabrication with police intercity, consciously exploiting CCSU databases through time, consciously. So that's what we have to do, deal with the recorded proofs, because this is tied to the recorded proofs of their roles actively, hiding live progressions charged with, in relationship to their roles with reported and recorded natures of child abuse and of exploitations of all ages of innocence, for how they have all these strangers with narratives spreading rumors and backgrounds with isolated social context and interbranch community, interbranch connected, what Weathersfield interbranch, modern and past interbranch families, for example, have roles with related confessions, drug cliques, exploitations, and juxtapositions with intercity campuses through time. Evidence fabrication, motivation natures. So deal with the facts. Where people from a court aren't supposed to threaten rape, and schools aren't supposed to cover up with lies and threaten people not to report. And with shifting lies on shifting police reports, in other words, demonstrating evidence fabrication and witness fabrication roles in relationship to threats, not for people at CCSU not to report recorded threats and acts, and requests from students, requests from female students, and from male students for help, and from people in the area for help, because it's a relationship to what's exploiting the online campus families and the off-campus families together, with roles with the service people involved too, even with drug cliques and stuff like that, and with evidence fabrication methods that juxtapose all different kinds of natures of crime. And they have that juxtaposed with a guy I never met named Detective Dylan, attached to all kinds of confessions through time, and actors actively involved with the natures of child abuse, with the people with the threats against particular children, and the methods of, for example, they arrested me with lies and with systemic name switches. They also, I asked about a police report that had nothing to do with sex slavery, and one of the appointed lawyers, after the confessions, the other ones involved, with evidence fabrication that was used to put people in jail. He goes, what'd you say? He pretended, I'm talking about, I asked them about how come I didn't get to see any writing regarding they admitted to evidence fabrications on shifting reports, and then they said we were getting dismissed from that, and there was an investigator, a court investigator, who was going to take part of that. And then they demonstrated that he directed them to tell lies to or with 4 or 5 judges involved in that case, where I was arrested for going to school asking to see a teacher. Then the English guy told lies to an East Hartford officer who was on the campus, which also has historical connections to drug cliques, intercity with that campus since I was a kid, connected to my school, connected to branch drug families. And then I'm only saying this now, I mind my own business my whole life. I never got involved I got insulated by games with the police, with these schools too. They put, the way they orchestrate because they have the healthcare cliques with it too. And they pretend that, in other words, these doctors are with juxtapositions, with court natures, and with police forms involved with these kind of lie progressions, using them for database evidence fabrication methods, and for directing all different narratives through. When you go to have appointed lawyers, they have a different one each time, and then they have them each tell different things, switch names, pretend that you were talking about sex slavery when you're trying to defend your little kid from people threatening rapes against them. You know what I mean? And parents in their school involved with this from when they were kids, so they got caught in lie progressions. They tell lie progressions to the media. The media called up by related women, and they don't put that in the story. Then they wrote other. They scared the people they come to with the media. They scared them like a blitzkrieg after recorded threats, evidence fabrication threats, communicated from various police forms connected. They orchestrate evidence fabrication threats. So now everyone's going to have an interaction with police that's not honest because they're not honest. So we have systemic problems, not by accident. We also have this attached to like murders and hate groups, the worst hate group stuff, but it's not real. In other words, they need it to be real because they need mistreatments of facts. That's why they have the KKK, skinhead people, and Confederate flag with recorded rolls, with the abused women, children, and elderly, with these cliques. For example, tied to Anthony Agnew, I never had anything to do with growing up. He also has ties to medical people with the drug rolls, to a time with police forms who have roles with 9/11 witness fabrications. All kinds of fake conversations that weren't at all categorically used for witness fabrication, evidence fabrications in relationship to that, to criminal stuff proven in the context of 9/11, but actively being hidden because of its roles with interstate exploitations of all kinds of police forms with evidence fabrication roles before that. So that was the motivations for our homeland stewards to cover up the lie progressions that were really all that went into that attack, into what's been exploiting it, while putting their arms around the victims, making them weapons as the same thing that made it happen, tools. So we don't have complaints led by courts that are covering up lie progressions in relation to how they're directed to communicate with their people, which is criminal. So then they can't go back and admit that. You can't pretend I said, it was over the phone too. You can't pretend that I was talking about sex slavery. And in other words too, years ago, I've been trying to make police report for years. They keep doing these sabotage things, and they won't deal with the facts. That's what I'm saying. Every time they come here, they put me in a fake conversation. They're using the right to lie, to database evidence stack, and that's being used with them using strangers, pretending they know people in relationship to school bullying that's intercity, and it's a method of terror that's to the maintenance of what's really juxtaposition of criminal enterprises, known and further demonstrable. It's in relationship to video. So CT is really ill, and one cannot make a complaint. In other words, they wanted to stay in the background and say things aren't true because they can't deal with facts. But I want to know who is the person with the account ERICKNERR who admitted to and demonstrated federal crimes, and he said were connected to the the court as well. Because again, since 2000, I have witnesses connected to Covington Street connections and to CCSU database connections, connected to related body dumping confessions and related drug dealing confessions with another body dumping area with a serial killer with drug dealers and police forms involved. Since I was a kid, with my town intercity, with the building right in front of where the buildings right in front of where the bodies were found in Britain, in West Hartford, right next to the Central, on the other side, right on the other town line. I don't know which town it's in right there, on the edge, right next to CCSU, with other connected murders, like a guy who was shot in a car. I saw him on Facebook. He has connections to a family member of a Wethersfield police chief I never met, but there were confessions made to him, about me to him, that I've been trying to report since my father's death. And I don't even have the ability to ask what happened to that yet, because they put me in fake conversations about that too. Related to two, I asked to make a report regarding these confessions tied to the hospital before any of this happened, because these are hospital cliques and their patients, mental patients and ones with like cancer and stuff like that, with their narratives, with the drugs, and with the connections with the intercity police forms, with CCSU, and with terrorism and exploitations of known exploitations of women and live progression cover-ups with this campus and with others. There's a man named Dow reportedly tied to related criminal enterprise juxtapositions known and further demonstrable with Wethersfield and with drugs and with exploitations of all agents of innocence and in relationship to a related school and related houses in that area, proven with psychology drug crimes, and with further demonstrable ones, with prison families, and with soccer families involved, that I don't know. And then ones who I know have drug rolls and with evidence fabrications and with lie progressions that have them to tactics needing to come online and pretend I was in conversations that I wasn't, then even admitted to demonstrating insidiousness, too tied to the police forms who attached fake conversations and have federal criminals tied to a former director of the FBI and to related CIA families, and to them put me in fake conversations about the CIA, and to them typing on a woman married to a guy that was in my grave, tied to the untimely death confessions that brought up a school to me. And this is also connected to UConn, the guy died, connected to the kid near the school, revolved with healthcare people and the police forms, with the threats against the kids to me, and threats for me to say nothing about them. And then acts, after having evidence fabricated in relationship to covering up lies and such, with that, and with other threats that I went to go report, also recorded, also quoting the same fake legal cases and doing the same slander tied to the same interbranch and intercourt clique with like Joe Aiello and other names. I don't know, online. And so this is also all that stuff got connected. We have to understand what's been with this guy, Detective Dillon. I never had a conversation with when I was a kid. Another youth my age was I didn't even know. Like, he knew my name because I was from Tiger Cubs, and then he went out of his way to call me and tell me about this Detective Dillon, who kept making him, trying to put me on a police report. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. They were putting, he kept making them for like a long time. He would tell them, I didn't say that, and he kept writing it over. In other words, before they did that, I never even saw the kid. So they had a guy, a detective, telling a kid that I never even saw before. Since I was years before that, when I was in the first, Tiger Cubs, before the Cubs Scouts. And I only did it like a few times. I don't know why I'm going to do it. So we have rackets through time, exploitations of all ages of innocence. There's also the other federal crimes and connected to murder confessions and to drug uses with that detective said by a Faenza family. And across the street from them, there was a woman who was pretending I was in conversations were about the CIA, telling the same lies that were on the. And see, I didn't say anything at first because then they're going to say that they were listening to me. They were just repeating what I said. I waited until after I saw everyone was involved on Facebook. Then I responded to the lies that they're telling together. See, that's why they won't respond in writing, because they're justifying evidence fabrication progressions by having people lie online and then pretending that's evidence and pretending they thought that was true when they know it wasn't. Weathersfield police admitted to switching names with this in relationship to exploitations of. There's a guy that was arrested for taking pictures of kids. They're hiding roles that has with families connected with the police surveillance of the businesses, and two, that's related peripherally to the shooting of the family member of the Weathersfield police chief. I saw a tie on Facebook to the shooting outside down the street across the street from where the serial killer land was, where New Britain Park is, for example. And then there was other Greg Kyler shooting. I have to be able to communicate facts. People are threatened. Strangers have threatened me not to communicate too. I never had a conversation with my wife. He was threatening me non-verbally, and with his friends, and with confessions tied to him. A guy from Allegro's Cafe used to be a nice guy. But he's got a kid. I don't know him. And the Fanzo family, before they said, hey, he's involved with this. Also, other people made confessions about this connected to that place and its connections to Middletown. And this is a group that had roles with Middletown, the prison cliques with the drugs growing up, and with their staffs involved with evidence fabrication methods that have nothing to do with money. That has to do with exploitation of people exploiting liberties, that are used standardized. And they're sharing ways to get away with it. Then, when breaching methods means to lie, like in related 9/11 context leading up to it, in relationship to these topics, being forced with only evidence fabrication grammar school treatments, it's not by accident, isn't seriously connected to the narratives with the advertising and with the media's recorded roles of offensive evidence fabricating and using those pretend credibilities to insidiously hide lie progressions tied to exploitations of all ages of innocence. Again, it's a problem. Then they demonetized my YouTube videos. Too many time positions and too many criminal positions, industry positions with predatory evidence fabrication, mass predatory evidence fabrications. To understand this, we have to understand American history. To understand this, we have to understand their original methods by this. Only that realized terror database relationships blamed on lies and by delusions, not by accident, for a method, a breaching method, to have self-defended, homeland breaching nature roles, mass, multi-front, entertained, evidence fabrication, treatments, justifications, needed force to top down treatments of facts in relationship to other invested needs to lie, justifications, bottom up, with our stewards, with our states. One way relates, we lost in revolution. So in other words, that's where Ken Bowen too. They're trying to extort the potentials of Hillary Clinton. And they already have Donald Trump, for example, now he's a self-defense nature, as an evidence fabrication nature, saying we need to claim an enemy as extreme Islam, as radical Islam. Till he said, radical, he said, to enforce that. Radical, that's how we discern the difference between positive and negative value nature. They're obfuscating that because they're sabotaging education with everyone playing roles with it because it's not their direct, they're putting physics before metaphysics. See, everyone's sharing only that realized debate zingers and games, you know what I'm saying? And this is by the parties per the interscience roles. Geopolitical campus only let realized litigation, predatory litigation natures, breaching nature rules, evidence fabrication, lie, progression, cover-up roles. For example, in relationship to what the nations did commonly below the border. That's how they get away with still teaching that it was a white man. Even though, you know, Spain, you're white too. It's the same. Spain looks the same thing because it's all mix of cultures. Why? Because of the way criminal internation connected humanity was criminally drawn to the defense of pseudo-identities, nations, and cultures by them. Only inherent to culture, only inherent to nature is the nature that is an active relationship to the rest of the nature as a positive value nature progression. Or, you know, as only let, when not three ways, as now, negative value nature progression natures. Value nature progression is a demonstration of our negative value nature. So we can't, business we can never, not only can the Constitution not be defended as a business, but the species, correlation cannot be defended as business. Correlation, it only works with what is on, or things that are unchanging truth. And business is not even a truth, it's a physic. See, people put physical delusions as premises in their mind because that's how they're taught to think. Because we lost in revolution to the sciences. Relink, religion, train, this trial, tribes, and sequence first. Why? So we need to get back to lands like Hawaii. Because we need to take, for fruit, we need to rebuild. Or at least, you know, and that has nothing to do with the president, too. This has to do with the narratives, which that is distinct in connection with the West Coast and with our conversation with the New York game, because we're going to play where everyone's stuck, incapable of having a serious conversation. We're going to start it one way and then see how we're going to have a West Coast to East Coast counter war in relationship to what steals the revolution lost and forced to wars, progressions. So until that war is won, other wars will just progress and blamed on other lies and delusions. It's no joke. If one nuclear bomb went off and they're still building them, then we all lose. So they do mutually assured destruction instead of tying the other world, the other nations, to lock us down and to lock the liars down with human value nature systems that have been played, that have demonstrated incompetence with physics first, with morality, being hurt conviction agents. That's what happens to the hurt. They hurt. You know, so men there are plenty of them. Their parents work so hard. They have path. That's what they want to communicate their soul. Because with that, though, is evident fabrication and differences. In other words, is hurt that's blaming it on other lies and delusions. As in, indifference with treatments of facts that are incapable relying on expert being and predatory breaching evidence fabrication methods. Staying shared means to the exploitation of that of only let realized. So then we have only let realized, top down, incomplete legal nature, justifications insidiously. We don't have free speech, we don't have free religion. That's an assault against the Constitution, driven by lies and delusions only let trained to the reception of business, not let attached to its, not let understood its roles with the terrors of colonization's laws, evidence fabrication methods, with those laws categorically, willfully needing to have those terrors blamed on other lies and delusions. It's exactly what they did with Joseph Mengele, Joseph Mengele, and with the invention of, with the German invention of the car, and with the American invention of the, it was geopolitical industry inventions that they were taking everyone to evidence fabrication. They were, take credit for this. You know what I'm saying? Self-defend this. In other words, now we have standards run by business interests, not by real standards. Native Americans are trying to tell you something. Nothing will get better unless you have an active relationship to what is only wanting to grow. Why? Or it goes goodbye. Religion, tribe, it's tribal tribes. Thank you for your time.